Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. We're in a lounge today. You can see the backsplash of the sun behind me. It's the best lighting I've got. I was going to try to do this on the walk, but the sun in the direction of the road right now is exactly impossible. Plus, there's just nowhere to sit on that road. I do like sitting in the middle of the road, but not this one. Grain silos and trucks and stuff. So I'm going to do a little video about psyching yourself out. Part of this video is a direct message to a friend. Part of it's a direct message to me. And part of it, of course, is a direct message to you, whoever you are at this moment. So I have a friend, and this is a very basic thing. This is kind of goes back to when I was getting my ham licenses. I've gotten the first two. I'm not an amateur expert. And I was doing this with some friends, and we wanted the ham. And a couple of the people really got into the aspect of having to master being a ham and have that experience and be like the equivalent of a 10-year operator, radio operator, not special forces operator, before they took the test, right? But what you do is you take the test, and then you're kind of in this community and you learn as you go. Now, you may have a lot of knowledge by the time you take the test, especially if you've done basic radio stuff. This isn't really complicated stuff. It's basic electricity, basic square cube law, RF radiation. Don't give yourself an RF burn by standing next to a 2,000 watt antenna. Duh. Say basic safety and basic radio procedures. Give your call sign every 10 minutes, so on and so forth. So what you do is you take practice tests. And depending on who you are, you may study the book first, do a full read of the whatever study guide you've got. You may go to a class, a seminar, where someone talks for 2 hours about the book. Or you may just start taking practice tests. And whenever you come to a question that you just don't know the answer of, you take a screenshot or write down or record or otherwise save the question. Go look it up online. Just Google it. Just Google it. 12 volts at 3.4 amps is how many watts? You don't know how that works? Google it. The thing is that you keep taking the practice test until you reliably can pass it 80% or better every time, like for 5 or 6 or 7 cycles, because all the questions are published. It's very peculiar to this type of test. And at that point, you know the answers, not because you've memorized A, B, C, D, because the questions kind of change. There's a larger question bank than you'll see on the test and stuff. But there's some of that. But also because you've learned the material. The questions have led you to learning what the questions mean and how to answer them. And then from there, you go out and you do things. You get radios, you get into a club, you go on repeaters. People are very welcoming. People are very happy to have you learn on the go. And that's how it works, right? A new ham is granted a little bit of leeway, a lot of leeway, for doing kind of silly things that may or may not actually be covered in a class or a test or a 2-hour lecture. No one does. People do the lectures, but no one really does the lectures. There are other parts of the world where your skills work that way, like studying for CPA, the bar. You study, but you study by answering questions. You answer practice questions, you look at study guides, you look at the materials that are covered, what are the categories and stuff. Going to a physical class after you've already got the experience, so you've already got an accounting degree, going to a physical class after that to somehow learn to be a CPA is kind of counterproductive. All right, so I'm trying to not make analogies in my life because analogies never work out right. But this is kind of an explanation of a concept. And I have a friend who wants to get his captain's license. And he's an experienced sailor. He's done the ICW. He's sailed around. He's done open water. He's done semi-protected water. He's sailed the bay, which is can get crazy. Like, he knows what he's doing, right? And he wants to get his captain's license. And there's like a couple of ways to do that. And the basic thing right now, the basic sticking point, psyching himself out, is sticking in one place, because he's about to go cruising, sticking in one place long enough to spend the money to take the in-person courses to do his captain's license versus doing it online. Same license. No one cares which way you did it. Okay, I'm just going to be clear about that. The license is the license. So, just get your six-pack. That's what you're doing. So if you do it online, you can do it while you're cruising. You have internet access. You stop at anchorages. You're going. There's an element to that, of course, that is way better for learning because you're actively doing stuff. For stuff about power boats, you're on a sailboat, you don't have a bow thruster, blah, 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 whatever. You're going to watch people. You're going to get waked by people doing 15 knots in the ICW on power boats when they shouldn't be. But you're in the environment. You're kind of in the sphere. You're in the vibe. There's an osmosis to it. Everything you learn is going to have an imprint of reality. You do it in a classroom, you get the in-person teaching. You get someone to give you the authority, reassurance that you have learned the material that you learned. Someone's going to say, yes, good job. Now, there's other ways to get that, especially if you're doing online. Like, you can just do daily recordings. You can do YouTube shorts. You can do Instagram Reels. You can do a blog, like a written blog. You can do an audio blog on Substack. There's all sorts of ways where you can say it and get that verbal if you need that verbal. But here's the thing. My friend is psyching himself out about how many reasons he has to not do it, just do it, but to wait for an in-person class. And it doesn't work as well with his plans, motivations, and goals in every other area. He wants to be moving. He wants to be cruising. He doesn't want to be tied. He wants to have enough income while he's cruising to keep cruising. Part of the captain's license is then charters, deliveries, water taxi work. There's all sorts of work you can do while you're cruising. Sometimes you'll park your boat for a month and go do a delivery of another boat. But sometimes, you're in a bay, you're anchored out, you're chilled, you're like, hey, I'm going to stay here for a couple of months. You go to the water taxi or the towboat guys and you're like, hey, I have a captain's license. What do you need? And there's work, part-time, full-time, seasonal, special events. They always need more people for the Annapolis Boat Show, whatever. There's a fishing tournament down in freaking Tampa Bay, whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. I'm making that up. So he's psyching himself out a little bit on making a need justification for doing the class in person, and the end result is the same. Like, there's a dozen methods of making the online class work even better, like taking the practice tests until you know everything. And then, of course, you feel like you might be cheating yourself of the depth of knowledge of an in-person course, but you're sailing. You've got the experience of sailing. You've already been up and down the ICW. You've done it in the middle of winter when it's cold. You've done it in bad weather. You've done it in good weather. You're punching a ticket, but you're not there to learn how to be a captain. You're going to learn stuff. You are totally going to learn stuff, but you're not reliant on that. Like, if you needed to go be an emergency towboat captain with one of those little towboats tomorrow, you could just go do it. Like, you don't have a major problem. There might be a few safety rules you need to look up on the way. If you needed to charter, if someone asked you to take that 42-foot Choi Lee ketch that's right out there right out there, I can see it, and run it down to St. Augustine, and they were offering you $6,000 in airfare back. You could leave your boat, go take it. You're not in a position where you can't do that. So the captain's license, to a certain extent, is punching a ticket, not learning how to sail. So don't psych yourself out about this. Look at your options. Maybe online just works better with your life, and do it now is better than do it later. And then you can, when you want to go get a 10-ton or a bigger license or something, you go sit down at one of the colleges and save your money, and you make that into a big milestone. Right now, this is getting your driver's license, not your CDL. Go get it. Just do the stuff. Now, for me, this relates to psyching myself out about getting out around the bay, the confluence of all the rivers and all the crazy water that we've got to traverse. It's too much for us to do in one day. Even with the potential of an overnight sail in good weather, and we have to be able to trust that good weather, because if we have to ditch, we have to ditch. Like, even with that, we can't do it in a day. So this is a 3, 4, 5-leg journey, and we're waiting for weather that works. And I am of course getting myself psyched out. I'm getting myself all psyched out because we've had some really bad weather where I was like, okay, it looks like it might be okay. Let's try it, and we had to turn around. And that psychs you out, man. That really gets in your head. You're like, and so, I'm sitting here as I record this. There's a slim chance that we could leave today. Slim chance. But the buoy out at Stingray Point is already hitting 20 knots. And their prediction that I'm getting out of my wind chart is for 8 to 11. And so I'm not really counting on this. But it's a northeast wind, and that's actually a good direction. And if the tides are right, it doesn't, and I don't even know. Like, there's 4 rivers with different tides. I don't know, we could, maybe, possibly. But if I have to drop a sail in 3-foot seas on a 27-foot boat with no controls run back, I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to be comfortable. I'm not going to be like, I've got a downhaul for the jib now. So that's fine, but I'm still not going to be, this is great. I had to take down sail because the wind is too rough and going against the seas, and that means then I'm just rolling on the seas. Nah, skip it, right? But I'm psyching myself out. Where is my good spot, and where am I being like, I should have gone, but I didn't because I psyched myself out? I'm not sure where we're at, and the good news with that is that there's no wrong answer in the sense of, if you miss a day, there's another day. But there's also, there's just waiting around. I have projects to do. I have stuff to do. And I have to remind myself and not psych myself out that way about, what am I doing? Wasting time. And I'm cruising, I'm cruising. That's what I'm doing. So part of cruising is being at docks. And it's fun. It's great. It's awesome. I do want to go. There's that gateway to the ICW part that I want to get to. But at the same time, I'm pretty okay with where we are. Like, I like it. I'm not having a problem. So am I psyching myself out about weather and capabilities? And maybe today we'll pack up and go for a day sail. And if the day sail turns into a bay sail, great. That's always an option too. There's, psyching yourself out is something to consider. And that's the message. The message for you. If you're looking at living aboard, if you're looking at cruising, if you're looking at anything, there's all sorts of answers to every question that you can ask. And obviously, like, if we were on a bigger boat right now, we'd probably be further along. 1, it's faster. Bigger boats are faster. 2, we probably would have gotten through one of the weathers that stopped us just because. Probably would have had an inboard instead of an outboard. The outboard is a fantastic thing, but there are a couple of weird limits to it in terms of where your prop is in the water. A roller furling, we probably would have been further just because, that, especially if it was a smaller roller furling. A lot of people do 150s or 170s. If we had a 110 roller or a 130 roller where we could actually get some performance out of reefing it in a little, rolling it in a little, we'd probably be further. Like there's sail handling characteristics. Obviously, if we had a roller boom, even on 27, we'd already be like in fucking North Carolina. Differences. If we were on a power boat, we would be in a whole different category of stuff, depending on whether it was a planing hull or a displacement hull, how big it was, how it rides at anchor. Power boats can be very uncomfortable on rough seas when you don't have a stay sail to get yourself set into a nice line with the water. But at the same time, a lot of them, I'm staring at a 24-footer right in front of me that has a 160 horsepower outboard on it. That's like a small power boat with a cabin and an outboard in that 21 to 28 foot range. Would be really nice for us because for ICW and most of the intercoastal waterway, that's actually a primo boat for people who want to live small, for people who want to cruise small. It's smaller than most people want, but for us, it would actually be really ideal. But, even with all the gas cost and everything, we would have been able to take that first day and run at 15 knots and make it to Deltaville. And that second day, where we had halfway decent weather, we would have been in Hampton. And after that, you're just running at 4 miles an hour forever because you're in the ICW. So think about that. We practically would have been using a trolling motor half the time after that. So that's a factor. If you're psyching yourself out about getting aboard, living aboard, there's a lot of people want a lot of space. A lot of people want a specific boat. A lot of people want something that's going to go across the Atlantic Ocean. You want a blue water sailboat. People talk about that so much. You don't need that. What do you need? What are you psyching yourself out about? Maybe you do need a blue water boat because that's what you're doing. But what are you psyching yourself out about? What is stopping you that is false? I'm going to have to look at it today. And now, of course, I'm making this video, so I have this impulse to get out there and make the passage, the little passage, but I don't know. I have a couple hours to look up what the weather's actually going to do, look at the other wind apps and look at the tides and the currents and see what's actually going on. But right now it's reporting 2.3 foot waves in the morning and the wind is supposed to rise. So, I'm not gonna psych myself up to the point where I do something stupid either. So that's it. For my friend, consider your life goals, impulses. What are you psyching yourself out? Are you actually stopping yourself? Because you've got a lot of great stuff going on and you could be putting an obstacle in your own way kind of as a fear or excuse tactic. And that's all. Stay sideways, guys.